Hello, this is Brian Whitten and ET Art. I wanted to put another video up today, not discussing planetary motion. I will, however, touch on it just a tad, but I wanted to go over the cycle, how we've come to, or how I've come to the conclusion that it was 6,000 years that the cycle, that was its entire length. I wanted to start with Easter Island because there's 888 Maui. If we see these statues here that we were probably reasonably familiar with, anybody with an interest in archaeological sites would have an interest and knowledge of the Maui. There are 887 on Easter Island, 888 counting the one that's still attached to the bedrock. Before I go on, if you were 12 or younger, could you please go and get your parents to watch this video first, please, and if they say it's okay, that's fine with me. Coming back to Easter Island now, I was aware of a line that circled the globe, I should say. If we look where Easter Island is here, and there is a line that goes right around the globe. This is part of that line. There are megaliths. I'm not saying all the megaliths are on it, I'm merely saying there are many, many megaliths on this globe, or on this line around the globe. It has the pyramids on it and Easter Island. I'm only concentrating on those two because it is those two that are very important to what I wanted to show you today. And that was how I worked out that the period of time and the cycle of we're just finishing is 6,000 years long. From Easter Island, we draw a line from there to the Cairo pyramids, like so. Okay, where it crosses the equator, which is up here, if we come straight down through the equator, or where it crosses the equator, around in this area here, and follow the line of longitude down, we get to this incident here. Now this image here is a close-up of the one that we just saw on Google Earth, this one here. The line of longitude is this pink line here. It is right in the exact bend in that impact. This is 700 kilometers wide. This is the first impact that started the Earth starting to tilt. It was standing straight prior to this. We are told this is what the pyramids are here for. Where this line crossed the equator, up here, down to Easter Island there, that line is 6,888 kilometres long. Okay, and what it has here, and excuse me, so from Easter Island to the line of longitude at the equator is 6,888 kilometres, leaving 6,000 kilometres left. If I follow this line here then, which is the line of longitude, down through here, through the Antarctic continent, and back up the other side here, we come up to Australia. So our line, that pink line that I've just shown you, comes straight up here and it goes directly through Uluru, or Ayers Rock, depending on what you would like to call it. Though I'm saying Ayers Rock because there's probably a lot of people still associate Ayers Rock with the discoverer of a European discoverer, as opposed to Uluru, which is what we in Australia are associated with now, more, you know, taking into case the original people of our country here. But that's where it comes up. That line comes straight through here. It goes directly, not 1 degree off. The centre of that kink is right on Uluru. From Uluru, I'll say, from the line of the line of tropics, alright? So from the line of tropics on that line to the line of tropics that was created by the impact, right, which is the tropics, is 888 kilometres. From the line of tropics down here to the coast is 880. From Uluru down to the coast is 666. from where Uluru is over to here, which is the middle comet. This one here, this is the impact as depicted by the first or the centre wall and the Saxahuman walls, which are built directly above the impact. This is the centre comet, the one that was trapped with the centre wall. It is 666 kilometres from the very point of impact there over to Uluru on the very same line of latitude now. 666 kilometres. From here over to here to Uluru is 666 k's. It's 666 k's from Uluru down to the coast here as well. This is how you know that all this is associated with each other. And I'm not the only person to come to this conclusion. I will show you something now. There are some things in life that discovering them and working them out and finding them out was not very enjoyable. This is one of them. The very same line that I've just shown you that goes directly through Uluru, which is the dead centre of that impact that started the tilt of Earth, that is 888 kilometres from the coast to the very line that created through here, the Tropic of Capricorn. If we stay on that line, that same line of longitude, in Japan, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, right on the same line of longitude, as is Darwin Harbour with that bombing of the HMAS Adelaide. Do you know that there were more bombs dropped in Darwin in the Second World War than there were in Hawaii? And then what happens? 10 to 15 years after the war, we come back out here at Maralinga nuclear test, right on the same line, right underneath Uluru, and bomb here again. This is not coincidence. This means that we've actually coordinated with the leaders of Japan to make sure this has happened. The same thing happened in Hawaii around here, which is at 90 degrees to this line here. Over here, Hawaii, Dresden, Germany. That's on the other line. I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to show you that there has been atomic studies and theory derived from the cycle of Earth around the Sun. It was very important for me to show you that before I went where I wanted to go today. I wanted to show you that. It is a very, very sad thing when you realise that my father fought a war up here, sent because of a bunch of politicians and queens and kings and royals organising such behaviour, and all so that they can get at the children of the fallen on both sides. Make no mistake, that is the purpose and the resource that these people fight for. It is not oil, it's actually people, the little boys and girls that they do unspeakable things to in both countries and right across the globe. That is why I gave you the warning of the 12-year-old warnings. It is atrocious. The behaviour of our top people, you will learn very soon just how corrupt and how the lies that we've all been told, and we will find it all out very shortly. I just wanted to show you that to understand that there has been atomic understanding of atomic science within the Earth's cycles around the Sun, the ones they don't tell you about. Now, I've shown you this plate quite a few times and we've discussed many things about it, but I did want to cross with it once again today. I've left this one with the moon's movement in and out here. I'd rather stick with this one and make it a little bit simpler. If we look at what we're being told about Earth, that we are told that Earth goes around the Sun in a clockwise direction for 16,000 years with a standing straight like so. We're then told that it does a 6,000 year cycle just like the one I've just shown you that was initiated by the southern impact, or the impact South America, which the tilt of the axis was actually stopped by an impact in Central America. I will show you that just for the sake of it, just before we go on, this comet sequence as we are told. If I said, okay, well the one in the south or one in South America. Here's the one that caused the problem. Right, so this has started the tilt of the axis. The second impact here is the one that stopped the tilt of the axis. That's why the Saxahuman walls are right here in between them. That's one comet. This is the first one. That's the second one. The one that I just showed you in Central Australia is the third one that's tracked by the walls at Saxahuman walls, which are right on the mountain ridge just here, right between both. That's why they're there. They show us that these impacts came from west to east to speed the globe's rotation, because at the point that these are hitting, the Earth is spinning at a 27-hour day. We also know that. It's 27 hours assisted. It's with their assistance that it's spinning at 27-hour day. If without the assistance, it would be 32. We are also told that. And that is important to know, because if we go back to the prior image that I had here and look at our plate, it is that cycle that's initiated by those impacts that send the planet in a motion where the plane of rotation around the sun has shifted and it's flipped 180 degrees like that, the result being that when it comes back up and joins the horizontal plane of the sun, which is what this plate is showing us here, and that when it comes back up and joins here, it's going anti-clockwise. And it too will be standing straight, just as it was prior to 6,000 years. It then goes around this way for 16,000 years. The difference in going that way is 32-hour day going that way without assistance. So in other words, if it was just left to run naturally, it would go a 32-hour day that way. Coming back this way, it's a 16-hour day. Each of them are 8 hours difference, either increasing from the 24-hour day we had in our off-plane cycle, like we have now with the tilted axis of Earth, to a decrease in 8 hours. So it's either increasing 8 or decreasing by 8 the 24 that we have with this mid 6,000 year cycle. The mid 6,000 year cycle and the movement of the plane 180 degrees like this is in actual fact calculated from 93 million miles to be 1 degree of movement every 33.3 years, or 66.6 miles a day at the point furthest the pivot. So if it's twisting this way, the pivot is here. It's going to pivot from here. So in other words, point furthest pivot, it's going to go at 66.6 miles a day. You can calculate, it's quite easy. 93 million miles to the sun, 180 degrees, 6,000 years. They are the numbers you need to calculate to work that out. The 16 and 32 are showing us in a multitude of things. I won't go into them because we've already covered much of that. And I didn't want to go there today. I just wanted you to be aware that that is the case. When we come back out into the outer ring of rotation here, we are told that Earth does the same thing, and you think, at one, well I was thinking here, why are we going way out here? This is 40 million miles beyond Mars here. Well, it's almost, it's twice as far we are from the sun now, 186 million miles from the sun out here. And yet they still send it one way and do the off-cycle loop and then send it back the other way. And you say to yourself, why? Why do you do that if nobody's on the planet? And you do gradually learn and understand that that's why we're seeing shifting mass within the solar system to make given portions of the sun's plane move to guide Nibiru. I went through that in the last video. I don't want to cover that too much. I just wanted to let you know that when you go out here, it does the same thing. It goes in both directions. Why? Was one of the questions I asked myself. It wasn't until I got right through that you get to understand why it's there. Why are they still doing it out in the outer, there's nobody on the planet out here. That's why. And the other reason why is the thing I want to discuss with you today. And I believe we're getting told in this cycle, like this, we're getting told here something about atomic energy. And it wasn't the fact that you could, create a situation where you had either hydrogen where it was compressed to the point that the neutrons would just blow up, or whatever the hell they do. That's why I wanted to start the video the way I did. That you can see that atomic bombs have fallen directly on the very line itself. And I think people at the top end of town have lied to the 2 or 3, I've said it before, 1 or 2% at the top of town have lied very much to the 3 and 4% below them, and the lies just got bigger the further you went down the pyramid of our pyramidal structure of our society. But it's without doubt I see in that a lesson, and it wasn't until I actually had a close look at the following that I understood what the lesson was. I do realise there's a bit of flicking on the screen there, so I apologise for that. Also, when I get a white screen, when we look at what we're looking at now, which is an atom of oxygen, and we look at our 8 electrons, our 8 neutrons, and our 8 protons. Our 8 electrons are going around the nucleus in rather the same way, isn't it? We've got a count of 8 again. We also have 2 rings. Whether this is like this visually just for us to, somebody like me, to grasp, because I know nothing whatsoever of atomic theory to the degree of calculus, very, 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 very minute. Sometimes a minute amount of knowledge is in an area is it'll get you into trouble, which is why I'm making this video. I'm actually suggesting here that in the design, when you know that the Earth's cycles around the Sun have been designed to filter this behaviour of these people out, so that we do not fly from this planet or anywhere else with the perception that chopping up a little baby and eating it is an acceptable behaviour. Because that's what it's all about. As soon as you have that process, being a greater majority of the people, there are no people anymore. That's it. The end of the human race with those people running it. That would be without doubt the outcome. But we look at this and see that we're looking at the same structure within Earth when it's in its outer ring of rotation and when it's in its inner ring. I'm wondering whether we're actually getting lessons here. Because if we put 8, if we squeeze this together so that these electrons were no longer in 2 fields but within 1 field, it's exactly the same as what we've just done with planet Earth, 8 one way or 8 the other. And I can't help but feel there is enough lessons of electromagnetic theory of the Earth spinning around the Sun and all such things that we're not getting atomic theory here when to see you guys letting bombs off on the very same line of longitude, that maybe our theory, and I wouldn't be surprised if you know this is all true and full well, that it's possible you could create through electromagnetic fields a situation where these electrons no longer travel within that line but within that line, and therefore reduce the size of the atom. Even though its structure is technically the same, it is still oxygen atom, but if it's been able to, and you can compress oxygen, yes, but if it's a molecule of water you can't. But what happens if we have a molecule of water and through electromagnetic induction one way or another, whether they're opposing fields or one field skewed to the other, which is what we get lessons about, that is possible. In other words, that if it be a molecule, and then if we look at our water with hydrogen and oxygen as a molecule rather than just an atom of oxygen, if we're being able to do the same thing here. So in other words, we're actually deviating and changing the size of the molecule of water purely and simply by electromagnetic induction of one form or another. I don't know what it is. I'm not a physicist. I'm merely saying the lesson appears to be here. So that if in actual fact you could do that through electromagnetic fields, you're actually then changing the mass, the volume, not the mass, not the weight. The weight of the water is going to remain the same. But imagine if you had a half a bucket of water difference now, because we're passing it through electromagnetic fields, that these electrons can ride within the same portion of the atom. Well, therefore, if that's the case, or that these can be compressed, that this compresses in closer here and maybe this compressor there, that we're getting a lesson there somewhere that I'm certain that that's what they're saying they can do. If that's the case, that would mean the volume of a given amount of water could be reduced, increased or reduced, pursuant to electromagnetic fields and the manipulation of opposing magnetic fields. It could be that I've always said that when the Earth stands straight and it's within the horizontal plane of the Sun, that the equator has to be protected, because I've always thought it was the Sun drawing the water away. It may not be. It could be the same thing here. It could be the fact that those two fields make the water compress, the atoms of water, and therefore the oceans would draw back because the Sun's on it. Where the Sun is that like real strong, it's a couple of 100 kilometres at the equator. So I'm just wondering whether we're getting a lesson here in the compression of these within a molecule driven by electromagnetics, because if in actual fact it was an electromagnetic fields, that is free energy, you're only flicking fields, you're not drawing current, you're flicking the polarity of fields from one angle to another, and so on, to increase or decrease the volume of a given portion of water. You in actual fact create energy, because if the water going through this process is within a vacuum, in a tube, in a field with a rod and a piston, you're in actual fact creating a driving thrust by the expansion or contraction of a given amount of water within a given field. So in other words, you just drive a piston with it backwards and forwards in a vacuum, in and out like so, purely by flicking the magnetic field from one direction to the other, or vice versa, however it's done. I'm certain that's what that is a lesson we are getting here. It may be something else that they've already woken up to. They just didn't bring it to us because they didn't work a way of charging us for it. That would be more the case. I did say today was going to be a very, very short video. I'm purely putting this out there because if there are people in universities with the technology, the ability to test such processes in a lab, I would get onto that, because I'm absolutely certain we're getting told a very, very basic understanding of the manipulation of the atoms or the molecule of water, but the oxygen atoms within the water being an ability to be able to do that, reducing the volume of water for a given, a given portion of water. You might be able to reduce, say, 1,000 or a litre of water to 600 mil, and then back to a litre. That's all you need to do. You don't need to have it doing. And I have a feeling that the amount of energy used to make this move back in, as opposed to the energy used for it to push back, is going to be greatly increased. You might find there's only 1/8 the energy used to compress it for 8 times reply. I'm absolutely certain that's worthwhile looking at for all you people out there with the knowledge I do not have, but I certainly see a lesson of that type of nature within the structure. Once you realise that Earth is being pushed out, the other thing that's important is it lays Earth flat between the transition between both the rings of rotation. Every one of them is laid flat. This may be something else you need to do to move the electromagnetic fields around to get that to happen. I do not know. I'm not an atomic scientist or a physicist. Certainly there are people out there with the skills and knowledge to know how to do that and such things. I did say today was going to be a very quick video, and it is. That's all I have for you today. Thank you very much. This is Brian Whitten and ETR. Have a nice day. Ta-ta.